Ladies and gentlemen, sit back and enjoy Mega Meeple.
Greetings and welcome to the Mega Meeple, the show all about gamers and the games that bring them together. This is episode 67, and yes, I'm back at the mic. I was on a little vacay there for a little bit. Well, not so much a vacay. I did some house sitting and some fur babysitting for some friends of mine that went on vacation they went to ReaperCon and then visited some family and friends. But so for about 2 weeks, I was just making sure the house didn't burn down and all the kitties were fed and taken care of. I got to spend about 2 weeks with 5 cats, and that was a lot of fun. They're very sweet. I'll get into that later. But first, I just want to welcome all the new listeners. For those of you just coming on, just pull up a chair. Everybody's welcome here at the Mega Meeple gaming table. And if you want, we have a website. It's www.themegameeple.com. We have news there. We have reviews. We have all kind of views. If you're a game designer, you could contact us directly. See about if you want to get on the show to talk about your game. You could contact us through the website. Also, on a social media page, has all the links to all the Twitters and Facebooks and Instagrams and all the social media stuff on the interwebs that you could follow us and interact and like and all that other stuff. And if you really like the show, you could also go to either our Patreon or Pod Pledge page and fork over $1 or so a month. It really helps us out with the hosting costs and all the logistical crap of just getting this thing out there. So appreciate that, and even if you can't do $1, just word of mouth. Tell your friends about me. Tell recommend the podcast and the YouTube channel and stuff like that to your friends. Word of mouth really goes a long way. Appreciate it very much. And if you can't do either of those things, hey, thanks for listening. So there you go. But and if you haven't already, you can go to iTunes and subscribe. While you're there, put out some of that 5-star loving. Leave us a happy review. That goes a long way as well. And, okay, so let's back to the vacation and fur babysitting. They have 5 cats. I took some solo games with me, and I tell you, what is it about box tops and cats just love to sit in them? Or any box, really. I think that just translates over to okay, if it's a box, they want to sit in it. So undoubtedly, when you have games and stuff on your table, that's the first thing that they just want to sit in the box lid and just kind of chill out. I don't know. Of course, they have a cat bed. Not even 3 feet away from them, the table. Oh no, they don't want to sit there. They don't want to lay there. They want to go into the boxes. I don't know. It's a cat thing. I guess we never understood that. But got to play some solo games. And actually, this past week's board game breakfast, I talked about going to your local bookstore. And there's a Barnes and Noble within walking distance of the house that I was sitting at, and went there, and sure enough, they had 3 copies of Sagrada. So I was like, wow, hell, I'm going to grab one of those, because my local game stores don't have a copy of them. Like they're still waiting for distributors or however they order games for that game to be available. Plus, online stuff. Even if they do get it in, like within a day or two, it's out of stock. So you gotta like be right on top of that stuff. So all these games that are really hard to find, just go to your local bookstore, Barnes and Noble. Go to I think Target and Walmart is now starting to have more hobby centric board games other than the whole Pokemon and Monopoly and Risk and all that stuff. But check those brick and mortar stores out and see what you can find there. And of course, I got back from my little house sitting for the whole thing of Hurricane Florence. So I hope all my friends on the coast regions of the Carolinas were safe. Hope they didn't do anything stupid and spit in the wind type of thing. It was dangerous. Get the hell out of there. Secure your stuff and get out of there. And you once the hurricane passes, you could go back and assess the damage and all that stuff and file your insurance claims. But me living 4 hours inland, the most we're gonna get is heavy rain and high winds. And I just the people around here. I mean, a lot of these people in Charlotte they can't even drive in the rain when it rains normally, So they're all, whipped up and worried about, the hurricane's coming in. I lived in Oklahoma for a number of months, and during that time, I stared down two tornadoes. So after, lying in my bathtub with a shower curtain over me, wearing a bicycle helmet, and I had to do that twice within a period of like 3 weeks because there was tornadoes nearby. Yeah, I'm sorry, I can't get all whipped up about some rain and wind, and that's pretty much all we're gonna get here. 4 hours inland in the Carolinas. So, yeah, you go grab your your bread and milk. Although when I went to the local grocery store, they had some bread and milk there, but it was the beer that was. It was the beer that they were a little scarce on. So yeah, people got their priorities. So what else is going on now? Oh yeah. X-Wing 2.0 is now officially out. So, yeah. So what about all you first edition collectors and players? Are you going to get the upgrade kits and start playing 2.0? Are you gonna keep your first edition stuff? Or are you just gonna stick with first edition and just play, casually, with some friends at your house? Or are you going to go full out? And I mean, really, if you're going to be doing anything on the tournament scene and playing in some kind of official capacity at these events and organized plays and tournaments, you're pretty much required to get one of the upgrade kits, at least for the faction that you want to specialize in. But for those of us who are just, I don't do tournaments. I just like to, get together with friends and just play casually, not necessarily at an event, but just at at your house. Are you just going to, stick with first edition? Are you going to get some of the newer stuff with second edition? Or did you just say, you know what, F this, I'm going to sell all my X-Wing stuff because I don't like Fantasy Flight games. This is a cash grab. I'll never play X-Wing again. And yeah, right. So we've heard that. We've heard that before. It never works out that way. I mean, I hear stuff like that, even in arenas that are not in gaming. You know, like one thing I know is like in WWE. You know, people are like, you know, if Roman Reigns wins the Royal Rumble, I'm never gonna watch another. I'm gonna cancel my subscription to the network. Yeah, they never do. They keep coming back. You know, it's almost a joke now that anytime that John Cena is wrestling, there's at least one person in the audience that has a sign that says, "If Cena wins, we riot." And of course they never riot. I mean, and it's not meant to be serious. At this point, it's just a joke. You know, it's like the 316 signs that you see at football. It's a staple and signature sign that you usually see, and nobody really takes it seriously. Shipments and arrivals from Kickstarters. Just got Tiny Epic Zombies, and got to play. I got to play at least the cooperative versus zombie mode in that one. Thus far, I have yet to play the other modes, but so far I'm liking it. And then not even 2 days after that comes in the mail, Gameland Games launches on Kickstarter the Tiny Epic Mechs. So, yeah, obviously back that one. And foregone conclusion that funded in a few hours. And then another thing that showed up at the doorstep is Village Attacks, which kind of flips the whole killing monsters and dungeon crawl thing on its head. A lot of them out there, it's like you're the heroes, you're the villagers or something like that, and you're trying to kill the monsters. Well, in this one, you're the monsters that have pretty much commandeered this castle, and and the villagers are coming at you with pitchforks and torches, and you're just basically trying to repel borders and defend against them and keep them from getting into the castle and just wreaking havoc. And then not even a few months after Everdale had been delivered to backers, Starling Games launched on Kickstarter the first expansion to Everdale called Pearlbrook. And the cool thing, one thing I liked about that is that they sent out, you know how some of these companies, they send out sort of like a preview of their Kickstarter page and just asking for feedback before they actually make the campaign live. Starling Games did that with Pearlbrook, and one of the initial things on the Kickstarter was the price. The price of the expansion was like $45 plus shipping and handling, and that's one of the first things that people kind of say. I mean, the core game is. You're selling the core game for like $45. Why is the expansion, just the expansion to the core game, the same price? It's like, that's sort of like a deal breaker to a lot of people. So what Starling Games did is they reduced the price of the expansion. They basically reduced the price to $39. And they upped the Kickstarter goal to 30,000 to kind of offset that. Now, of course, it gave like Everdale. Yeah, hitting that 30,000 goal was no problem whatsoever. Some other things that are kind of cool about the expansion is some of the add-ons. I know. They have one of the main complaints I have of the Everdale game is the components. That their components are great, but those damn twig tokens, they just roll around all over the table. And luckily, I have a gaming table, so I don't have to worry about things rolling off the table onto the floor. But for all of you that don't have a gaming table, that don't have that recessed play area, if you're just playing on a regular table and those things roll around and, you got to chase those things before they roll off the table. And if they roll off the table onto the floor, if you have a cat, oh, good luck to you, dude. And you'll never find that token ever again. Well, one of the cool things they have as an add-on with this expansion campaign is you could get the twig tokens that are made that they don't roll around all over the place, and that's cool. That's a big plus for me. And also they have the add-on where if you want to get additional ever trees, and it's basically the punch out board for the ever tree. Now I'm still kind of crossing my fingers that someone out there will come up with a 3D file where somebody could like 3D print the tree, so you don't have to worry about the cardboard or anything kind of fraying out on the ends and the edges after multiple assemblies and disassemblies and crap like that. But anyway, that campaign is going until September 27th. And for those of you who missed out on the Everdale Collector's Edition on the initial Kickstarter, they have a reprint of that, so you could redeem yourself by getting the core game with that, and get Pearlbrook while you're at it too. So, and actually, I just like a day or so ago had arranged to have an interview with Andrew Bosley, who many of you may know is the artist for Everdale. So we're going to have him on an upcoming episode here. So stay tuned for that. And speaking of guest, my guest in this episode is Michael. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because at the time that I'm recording this, I forget how to pronounce his last name. But I did pronounce it correctly during the interview that we recorded about 3 months ago. Mainly because I asked him before we started recording, hey, how do you pronounce your last name? So that helped me sound really, really smart during the actual interview. So, but since that was 3 months ago, I don't remember how to pronounce his last name. So you'll just have to listen to the interview to find out how to pronounce it. Anyway, he's with Clarion Studio Games, talking. We're the initial interview done about 3 months ago. We talked about Hull Breach and Heckman. And actually, if you go to the Mega Meeple YouTube channel, we have a demo that was recorded last year at Mace about, we did a demo of Hull Breach. And we also did a sort of like a reveal of Heckman. And Heckman actually is a Kickstarter that is getting ready to, it's already finished and it's getting ready to be shipped to backers pretty soon. But just recently, they launched a new Kickstarter called the Four Horsemen Omega War. So there's a section of the interview that we recorded like a short 5-minute addendum to the interview that I just kind of inserted in to talk about that Kickstarter. And again, we'll have links to all those things in the show notes of this episode. So go check out Heckman and go check out their current active Kickstarter right now, the Four Horsemen. So anyway, let's go right to that interview, and you could hear all about those games right from the source. All right, welcome back to the Mega Meeple, and we have as our guest in this episode, Michael Ciaravella of Clarion Games Studios. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you for having me on today, Thomas.
No problem. Yeah, thank you for coming on. And first of all, we have a Kickstarter that actually funded back in November. Is that right?
Yes, indeed. We were very pleased. We made $11,000 on a $10,000 goal, and it's our third successful Kickstarter, so we were very excited.
Cool. Yeah, because it was about that time that I was at Mace here in Charlotte, and you met with some of the guys there. They were talking about Hull Breach, and we'd touch on that here in a little bit. But also got to see a little, I guess, a prototype demo of Henchman, and I mean, it. This is going to be a cool game. I mean, first of all, congratulations on the successful Kickstarter, but I mean, it's one of these things that it just takes a humorous take on office politics, and so even just the mechanics of the game is cool. But I mean, if the final artwork is anything like what I saw at Mace back in November, I mean, just the artwork and the caricatures alone is gonna draw some snickering, and it's like, yep, I worked with a person just like that. So, but first of all, just tell us about yourself and how you got into gaming.
Okay, that's always a fun one right there. Well, I've been a gamer since I was very little. I've always been a huge reader. I've loved RPGs. To get for the backstory, I'm a huge science fiction and mystery fan. I started doing conventions back in, longer ago than I'd like to admit. Icon was still running regularly on Long Island, and that was my first convention. My parents used to take me there. That was very exciting. After that, I started getting very involved with a few other games that were played competitively at tournaments. One of my personal favorite is BattleTech, or Classic BattleTech, depending on who you're talking to right there. I happen to just love the universe, and so I started going to conventions. I started meeting some wonderful people, and it helped me choose gaming as one of my areas of focus for my life.
That's neat. It's wild because it seems like once the bug hits you, that's usually all it takes, and the ball just rolls from there. But you're part of Clarion Games Studios, and now how did Clarion Games Studios come to be? How did that develop?
Well, that one goes back to my growth in the gaming industry right here. A couple of years ago, my little sister bought me the Kickstarter for Hull Breach, which was the first product that NSB Studios had put out. NSB Studios was made up of a group of military veterans and active duty military officers, and they went out to make a fantastic, real, true-to-life science fiction card game, which drew on their experiences while trying to keep the elements of more harder sci-fi. And so she sent me the entire set, and I absolutely loved it. Shortly after that, I met up with some of the design team of Hull Breach and NSB Games at TotalCon in Massachusetts. And while we were discussing right there, they offered me a position coming on board and assisting with the design process for their next few projects. I was very excited. I took them up on their offer, and it was a wonderful time from there. A little over a year ago, I was made Chief Executive Officer of NSB Games when the current president, Dan Oxier, was deployed. At that time, we continued moving forward with NSB Games, but we were looking to really expand upon the portfolio. Since there were only a handful of those left from the original design team, I opened Clarion Games Studios to draw upon my own experiences in the gaming industry, and I brought over most of the previous NSB team and a few veterans I've worked with, veterans of the gaming industry that I've worked with presently, and we started a fantastic new company last year, and we are now the proud owners of the Hull Breach intellectual property, and as well as Henchman, our newest game.
For our listeners, if you go back, if you haven't listened to it already, episode 26, the Mega Meeple podcast, you go back there, and I know I interviewed at one of the segments in that episode. I interviewed the creator of Hull Breach, and he was talking about how he just can't. And I can't. I'm sorry, I can't remember his name. What?
That would have been Dan Oxier himself.
Okay, all
man
right.
who made it happen.
All right. Yeah, if you want to hear an interview with him about Hull Breach and how he came up with that, it's really cool. It's basically it's like if war was being done in space right now, these are the I guess the strategies and the things that how it would all play out. But it's a really cool game. Has some cool expansions with that as well. But I remember when I first saw Henchman, I think it was Todd.
That would have been Todd Holloman. He's the
That's
he's
right.
one of the two people in charge of our operative program, which does a lot of our organized play events at tournaments.
That's he's very entertaining, very personable, and in fact we did some videos with him. We did one video where he talks about the lore of Hull Breach, and then another video where he did a sort of like a kind of playthrough tutorial of the game and how it kind of all plays out and how one scenario possibly may work out in the game. But yeah, if so, for those of you who haven't checked out Hull Breach, check it out. It's a really cool card game. That leads us into Henchman, and if you could tell us how that game came to be, what was the impetus behind creating it, and how does it all play out?
Absolutely. Well, the game itself came around as so many interesting games do. I was at the Origins Game Fair, and I actually had the wonderful opportunity to speak with John Helfers, who is the novel editor for the BattleTech game line. Once again, my love of BattleTech comes to the forefront with Catalyst Game Catalyst Game Labs, one of my favorite other gaming companies. And I had the opportunity to sit down with him, and while we were having a discussion over dinner, he'd mentioned that he had a fantastic game designer that I had to meet, Dylan Bertolo, who he had been working with on a little project, and he wanted the opportunity to sit down with me and tell me all about it. At the time, he described a game that was The Office. If the entire thing was set in a sort of fantasy steampunk setting. I was immediately hooked. I thought it was a brilliant idea. I thought it was really something that could go over well. And I sat down with Dylan, and I sat down with John, and they showed me Dylan had the entire game already prepared and laid out. And I was very excited for it. It's begun being our flagship product for this year. We are intending to have it present by Origins. And as we mentioned a little bit earlier, we had an $11,000 Kickstarter, which was incredibly impressive. Number one, for the fact that, we're all veterans of the gaming industry. This is a new company. But also that Dylan, this is one of his first solo games that he has put together right there with John. Solo as in him developing it himself without a full team. And it was a very exciting opportunity.
That's cool. That's about how sometimes seemingly the most casual meetings and introductions and can lead to something much more. See, ideas just flesh out and become reality. So that's really cool.
Absolutely.
So go ahead and tell us about how the game plays and what the victory condition is and how many players does it play for and all that good stuff.
Absolutely. Well, how it was originally designed, it was up to you could play 2 to 6 players. The theory behind the game is that you are one of the minions of the evil overlord, and you are trying to curry favor with the evil overlord and become his henchman, his right-hand man. To do that, you have to succeed in tasks. You have a certain amount of time and resources to complete tasks, and you need to do these tasks to move forward and succeed. Each player gets a task card in front of them, and it has a goal of time that they will need to have left to be successful of their task. However, you also have skill cards, which allow you to improve your hand or to cause some issues for one of your fellow minions. So you are trying to accomplish your goal while they are going to fail theirs. There are also different conditions where in your actual task card that you're trying to accomplish, you may get points for accomplishing it. You may get negative points for accomplishing it. Each one is a little bit different, so you need to think strategically about how you're going to win and get to a certain amount of reputation with the Overlord himself. Not only that, while all of this is going on, you've got to keep an eye on all of your fellow minions to see where they are, and the head minion. Each round, a single minion is given the title of head minion, and they also will get bonuses or negatives depending on whether you succeed in your task or whether you fail. So sometimes it's more strategic to fail your task and cause somebody else misery than to succeed. It's all playing the long game.
Can you talk a little bit about some of the characters cards in here? Because I think that's where a lot of people are gonna be able to identify or kind of place themselves into the role of this game. Because some of the characters are pretty cool.
Absolutely. We started off with 8 major characters initially. Each one has their own benefits and breakdowns. Once again, they're all in the fantasy / steampunk / horror theme. We've got Orgoth the Overachiever, who is constantly trying to accomplish more than he usually does. Coffee Christie, the lovely vampire who hates being up during the day and cannot function without her beloved coffee. We all know somebody in the office like that.
Oh, yes.
We also have Horus, who happens to be a stone golem, who does not speak, for he has no mouth, but he always seems to be the one who communicates best. And we've got several other characters that were either in the base set themselves, or during the Kickstarter, we had several contests to develop new characters and additional characters, some of which were also added into the base set as a special gift to our Kickstarter backers and to those who will buy the game when it is finished in production.
Excellent. Looking forward to that. So, talked a little bit about Hull Breach, but you just recently have a new science fiction card game coming out that's now on Kickstarter called the Four Horsemen Omega War Game. So, tell us a little bit about that and how does it? Is this like a continuation of the Hull Breach universe, or how does that tie in?
Well, this is actually a completely different literary universe. The Four Horsemen universe was created by Mark Wandry and Chris Kennedy. It is a very successful series of books. I believe they're actually putting out a novel every 3 or 4 weeks right now, most of which have been hitting the top of the Amazon bestseller list. I actually had the opportunity to meet these incredible authors while we were on the convention circuit. And they'd seen Hull Breach, they saw the Hull Breach system, and they were very impressed. They were very interested in doing a game in their universe, and it seemed like a natural fit for us. It was using the basics of the Hull Breach system. We've actually expanded quite a bit, where Hull Breach was devoted mostly to space and boarding action, space combat and boarding actions. This will also the new Four Horsemen Omega War will also include ground battles as well. So we're expanding on the already very successful system, and it has been a very good project for both of us.
Okay, so for those of us who have Hull Breach, it's not like, oh no, I can't play Hull Breach anymore. It's like a standalone, separate thing.
Absolutely. It's a completely standalone, separate thing, but we're also seeing a lot of improvements that we may be bringing as well to the main Hull Breach line as we develop there as well.
Okay, cool. All righty. So tell us a little bit about the Four Horsemen Omega War game and how it plays out and what the winning victory conditions are.
Certainly. So much like Hull Breach right there, you've got a base that you must protect. It's a little different than when you just had a space station that you needed to protect, but now you've got a base. It could be in space, it could be on the ground that you need to protect from your enemies. And that's where you will get all your units, that's where you will deploy from, and that's where you'll start the game. The objective of the game is, of course, to take over or destroy your enemy's base. And so it can be played one-on-one, it can be played with multiple players. Currently, the game is set for up to 6 players, which it can be done comfortably, but we are looking at doing some further expansions that'll make it for even more and grander battles. But it is a good system right there to use. You can there are multiple ways to determine victory. There is straight combat. You can destroy your enemy's base. You can invade it and take it over. And we're also working on some special conditions that will make for slightly different tactical options and some interesting strategic objectives.
Are we gonna have a demo or something of the Mega War game coming up in Mace? I think in 2 or so months, or is that a little bit too optimistic?
We may have a print and play very, very basic version, probably without any art for at that point. We've been very blessed in the past. Our manufacturer has been magnificent about making quick and timely demos for us. But we're still in the Kickstarter phase for Four Horsemen, and a lot of that money does go to the artists themselves because we're commissioning them to do some extraordinary new work. So I don't think we'll have the artwork to have a full demo in 2 months, but we are looking at some options to show off for very early next year, because we are very interested in showing off this magnificent game and getting people to play it and getting some good feedback.
Cool. All right. Well, I'll definitely. I'm going to be at Mace this year, so I'll definitely hunt on JD and see if he has a copy there, because I'm sure they're going to be there doing Hull Breach and Henchmen as well, I think.
Oh yes, for Mace this year is going. We always have a big presence at Mace, but this year we're going to be very excited. We should have all of our production copies of Henchmen there. That is still on the plan. We will, of course, be selling Hull Breach and showing off some new items. And I always enjoy showing off the demos nice and early. So I'm sure you'll get the opportunity to see how Omega War plays out.
Excellent. All right, well, looking forward to that. Now, actually, before we wrap up here, if you don't mind, we'd like to play a little game with our guests. Has nothing to do with gaming per se, but just gives our listeners just a glimpse into our guest's personality. It's called the Mega Meeple Rapid Fire Round. And it's not timed. I'll just rattle off a choice of 2 things, and you just tell us which one you prefer over the other. Okay, ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Coffee or tea?
Tea.
All right. Spring or fall?
Spring.
Yeah.
Can't wait this year.
Money or fame?
Ooh, that's a good one. Well, I think it's going to be money. I don't mean to be shallow, but money allows me to make more games.
That's right. That's right. More money, make more games, buy more games, and fame. There's only so much you could get by on your name or fame or your looks. But
very true.
The rest of us have to rely on money and abilities, I guess. All right. Next, multiple choice or essay?
Multiple choice.
All right. And here's a fun one. Darth Vader or Kylo Ren?
Oh, Darth Vader.
Of course. It has to be. So,
you gotta love the Master of Darkness right there.
Yeah. Kylo has a little bit more growing up to do before he attains that level of Sithness, I guess.
He'd need at least 4 more movies.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Michael. Now, if people want to find out more about you or to know about more about Henchmen, the game, or even about Hull Breach, where could they go?
Well, they've got many options. They can go to ClarionGamesStudios.com, our main page, which we're actually redoing right now. We've just finished a recent update on HullBreachGame.com, which would be specifically for Hull Breach. Or you can always catch us on Facebook, either for any of our games. So either Hull Breach or either the Hull Breach or the Henchman Facebook pages, or the Clarion Games Studios page yourself. If you like us, you'll get our regular updates and have an idea of what new things are coming down the road.
Well, thank you so much, Michael, and we'll looking forward to getting the game. And you take care.
You too. Thank you so much, Thomas. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. All right. Thank you so much for hitting that download button and listening to the episode. Come back next week, as my guest will be Tom from Flyos Games. I'm not going to try to pronounce his last name because it's French. So, hey, if you listen back to some previous episodes, there have been, Norwegian and German and Italian names that I have pronounced pretty well. So, I think I owe it to myself to bow out on pronouncing some hey, a guy got to know his limits, But anyway, we got a guy named Tom coming on next episode for next week. He's from Flyos Games, and he's talking about Until Daylight, and that is also a current Kickstarter. It's successful, so come back next week and hear about that game if you haven't heard about that yet. And in the meantime, just like I said, just spread the word. Tell your friends about the podcast, the YouTube channel, stuff like that. Word of mouth goes a long way. I'm a one-man operation. I could only do so much. I really rely on all of you to, the fans and listeners of the show to be ambassadors and advocates for the Mega Meeple. And that really, that's very much appreciated. Even above and beyond, if you're able to do like $1 or so a month, hell, if 20 of my listeners donate the show, support the show for $1 a month, that pays the monthly Libsyn fees. So right there, that's one thing I could check off my monthly my to-do list every month because I have your support to do that. But yeah, just word of mouth goes a long way because it just increases the listenership in a circle of awareness of people with the Mega Meeple. So again, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you'll join me next week. Until then, I will see you at the gaming table. Starting date is, yeah.